The Guild is Maximum Lawyers' community of legal entrepreneurs who are taking their businesses and lives to the next level. As a Guild member, you'll build relationships, be held accountable, and learn strategies specifically designed to get you unstuck and accelerate your plan for growth. Members are also granted exclusive access to masterminds hosted around the country. Our next event is coming up, and we're heading to Scottsdale, Arizona. There's something truly magical about the power of these in-person connections where real-time breakthroughs happen. Picture this. You're surrounded by like-minded law firm owners tackling your business and mindset challenges together. The energy is electric, the insights are transformative, and the results are game-changing. Investing in yourself is the best decision you'll ever make. The knowledge, strategies, and breakthroughs you'll gain are priceless assets that will supercharge your practice and propel you forward. Join the Guild and secure your ticket to Scottsdale at the best possible price by visiting maxlawevents.com.
Run your law firm the right way. This is the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. Your hosts, Jim Hacking and Tyson Mutrux. Let's partner up and maximize your firm. Welcome to the show.
Welcome back to the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. I'm Jim Hacking.
And I'm Tyson Mutrux. What's up, Jimmy?
Tyson, my friend, I just got back from my walk. It's early November. It's sunny outside. It was beautiful out. I had a nice chat while we were talking. Becca was telling me all the things that I'm screwing up, which is always fun to hear. And I had fun talking to her and to you.
Yeah, the weather is, this is fantastic. This must be what it's like to live in like San Diego, because it's just been amazing. For Missouri in mid-November, I guess early November, it's been fantastic.
Well, let's get straight to our guest. I'm very excited to have him on the show. His name is Tom Lenfestey. He helps lawyers sell and buy law practices. It's a topic that people ask us about all the time. Usually it's interesting because earlier today we had someone talking about changing the name of your firm. So we were talking about branding and naming. And then the one thing I always hear people say is, I want to sell my firm. I'm going to make it to some name that doesn't have my name in it. So Tom, we're glad to have you with us. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, Tom, you founded the Law Practice Exchange in 2013. So that's really interesting. But tell us really about your journey, how you got into that, and then really what's going on with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. So by background, I'm an attorney CPA, and I was in the transactional world doing a lot of, planning, succession planning, wills, trusts, other planning for a lot of professionals. So a lot of other dentists, CPAs. And as I tell everybody, my journey with the Law Practice Exchange really started back then. I would love to say out of like this passion or like I'm going to change the profession, but I really think it was more of jealousy. That what I was doing was helping a lot of other, professional business owners, these dentists, these CPAs, doctors, other specialists, plan for their exit and help to transact and monetize the value that they had built. And I really just started to ponder why or who was helping lawyers do this. And so then it became my market mission to, create the marketplace for helping really, solos to small firms, small ownership groups buy and sell law firms. And so that's really what we started back in 2013. Again, just trying to provide the same opportunity that I felt other professionals had figured it out. And law's different, and I thought we could do it. And we've been on the path to really build that marketplace since to create, continuation plans for lawyers. So allowing them to exit, allow their practice to keep going, and allow them to monetize the value that they built in the process.
Tom, you say lawyers are different, law firms are different. Tell us why, please.
Yeah, I think so many law firms that we see traditionally, especially, of a certain generation, right? If we're talking about attorneys or law firms that are retiring, so much has been built around their personal brand. And so they are the personal value. They have that heavy referral network. They haven't focused as much on the firm as a business as maybe, the current generation is, or, hopefully a lot of your guys' listeners, a lot of your, mastermind, your guild members, to do that. But overall, we have to transition that over time. So what I tell people is what we do are transition-based sales. They're really not throw the keys and walk out the door. That's a rarity in our world. Some of our plaintiff practices, some of our practices can definitely do that. They've built more of that firm brand, that firm, operations. But so many of our, small practitioners, they need time to kind of introduce and attach their brand to who their successor is. So that's a little bit different than some of our dentists who get to, cash out at closing, walk out the door a week later or anything else. But we figured out a great process to do it. It's just a little bit different and it works well for lawyers.
Why do you think that doesn't work for lawyers? Because I've always wondered that myself. Like I hear these dentists all the time selling their practice and then someone else takes over. Like I've got a friend of ours, she's a dental technician and she works for a dentist and then it was purchased by a dentist and then, purchased again. And it's just, to me, like we should be able to do the same thing as attorneys. So why is that different?
Yeah, I think it is because of that, that personal network, dental specialties. Like if you go to like an endodontist and orthodontist, they operate very similar to, a lot of lawyers where they're referral based. And so they're similar. They have to kind of transition, over time, introduce, kind of preserve those opportunities. But I do think, Tyson, it's the nature of where we've been as a profession of kind of building our law firm as an extension of us versus building it really as a separate business. And I mean, I know that's what you guys talk a lot about is, focusing on that business that is not about just you, but is really a business to serve clients, to build operations, to build marketing, to build systems. And I think the more we do that, I think there's a shift, right? So we see that shift already in certain practice areas with certain types of firms. And, we're hopeful over the next 10, 20 years, we'll even see more of it. So again, jealousy is a powerful thing. We can catch up to those other professions. We're usually behind on technology. We're usually behind on marketing. But as we get there, it opens up other opportunities like transactions where we will be able to, throw the keys to somebody and walk out the door.
Here's a question I ask myself all the time, Tom. What mistakes do lawyers make at the beginning when they're founding their firm? A lot of people that listen to this show have either just started their firm or about to start their firm, might be a few years in. Talk to us about what structural, naming, whatever other issues that you see come up 5-7 years later when someone wants to get out.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were just mentioning when we opened up about the having your personal name and do you rebrand that or anything else to a community or something that's not attached to your identity. If you're starting your firm today, then I would definitely suggest, I'm a big believer in trade names, right? Filing those trade names with the state bar if you have to, or some states don't require it. Just file it with your, county or state. But, detaching, right? Even the big firms figured out, a few years ago, that 18 names on a law firm header really didn't move the needle, right? So most of them have collapsed to one name or two names, and it's really to focus on that firm brand. Overall, it's if the brand is you, it's going to be harder to transition that to somebody else. If they see you as aging, retiring, exiting, right? The fear is, there goes, Jim, and he is the firm, right? To a different degree of if you created something that is, XYZ immigration law, that is a little bit easier to say, who is the attorney, right? You don't know as much. And I think that's a lot of, again, when we go back to comparable on dental, accounting practices, others, they have taken over those brands. Now you don't see as much, Joe Smith, DDS. You see, Downtown Dental. You see these different things that are easier to kind of replace those owners. So I would say that's one thing I would look at. The other is to really look at, data, which for us, some of our lawyers, again, different times, different structures, different focus, but we do a heavy data dive, not just financials, but on other metrics. The first question any buyer is going to ask is, where do the clients come from, right? And if you don't really know where that is and you can't prove, the history of that, that's going to be a hard practice, to get a buyer comfortable with, especially one that you maybe want, more cash at closing, less earnout or performance payment or otherwise. So I would say making sure your firm does have the data, you're tracking everything. That includes clean financials. The overall aspect of running your firm for max tax breaks, it's good for you, but also it's really tough. I mean, we've had lawyers that have come to us with, again, negative or no income each and every year. And they say, yes, I look at the revenue, right? I'm doing $4 million in revenue. It's all buried in there in travel expense and this and everything else. And the hard fact of it is we can't get a lender to finance, probably that practice because it's a flat net income practice. Buyers are going to be less trustworthy of, that. So clean financials, having the right data, setting up a firm brand that is apart from you. And then overall, if you're going to do it, and this is repetitive to what I think you guys talk about and, have the community talk about a lot is, it is build systems, train people, and train and operate people on those systems instead of you really being the hub of everything. And, everything we do, I said, is transition-based sales. Well, if you make the transition plan easier, right, of what your role is or responsibilities are, I can bring more buyers. I can bring better terms to the table because essentially buyers will see that as a true business that has less risk of you departing, right? You are less needed, less valuable, everything else. And to somebody starting out new, you guys know this, that's hard to say, oh, I'm going to make myself not needed right away. But it is something to look at, making the right hires, developing those right process, everything along the way so that you always have an exit option, right? You're building towards that exit option. Just like any other business or good planning, like if you're opening a law firm, what's your strategy? Are you doing it to maximize income and then you're just going to shut it down? Are you going to build value over time and add partners to it? Are you going to focus on building it up and then, cashing out one day, right? Equity's starting to move in Arizona and Utah. I mean, wherever you are or whatever practice, there's a potential for, that payday or another lawyer coming in or law firm. So you should know what your exit strategy is and try to build towards that.
So let's say that Jim, he's like, I'm done. I want to get out of this practice. I don't want to do immigration anymore. How does he get the word out to people? That's like, to me, like I don't ever see law firm for sale. I think I've seen it one time and I heard it through a text message chain. So like, how do you get the word out about it?
Yeah. So that's part of the importance of where I thought, the confidential marketplace of, having brokerage for law firms, right? Providing those options. So, if Jim's looking for that, nobody in the market should really know. I mean, if you go to, our website now, we have, 10, 15 public listings. We have another, 30 private listings behind the scenes, right? And that, again, just because of confidentiality, looking for the right buyer, anything else, the overall goal is to, keep it confidential. And then it's the outreach. If you are looking to go on your own, though, we tell everybody, depending on the size of the practice, everything else, look around. You may have done a transaction or a case with, a younger generation attorney or a next gen, with somebody that you're like, damn, they're a good attorney. They're a good business owner of their firm, or maybe they're unhappy at their current firm and they'd want to be my successor over here. So a lot of it is just looking around to see that. Otherwise, legal insurers are a great asset for us because they get calls from attorneys that are saying, hey, look, I want to retire in the next few years. What do I need to do? And they have a great database. The bar associations, your guys' association, right? As far as the members and getting the word out there. The hard part is really cracking that egg open. And so that's why we operate so much on, hey, here's a listing. You go to our website and look, but you would never know it's Jim's firm, right? And once we, qualify a potential buyer, get confidentiality agreements signed. So as a service, as a broker, a lot of the times that's our main purpose is to keep things quiet while looking for the right, strategic opportunity.
The Guild is Maximum Lawyers' community of lawyer entrepreneurs who are taking their businesses and lives to the next level. As a Guild member, you will build relationships, be held accountable, and learn strategies specifically designed to get you unstuck and accelerate your plan for growth. Members are also granted exclusive access to masterminds hosted around the country 4 times per year. And in 2023, we've added a half-day workshop to each mastermind where you'll learn new skills while working on improving systems and aspects of your personal firm. Then take the hot seat on day 2 and work through your most pressing challenge. It's all inside the Guild. To learn more, visit maxlawguild.com.
You're listening to the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. Our guest today is Tom Lenfestey. We're talking about brokerages of law firms. And Tom, what should people that are thinking about taking over the practice of another, what should they be thinking about for their due diligence? Is there a playbook on how best to do it, about the right questions to ask, the right reports to run? Like, what should people be thinking about when they're the one doing the acquiring?
Yeah, if you're looking to acquire practice, first thing is, baseline. Are you ready to take on that practice, the responsibilities, the roles, everything else? Revenue growth sounds great. And again, if it's marketing growth and it comes in waves or anything else, but if you're going to acquire $1 million practice and you're doing $1 million, you're talking about doubling, your responsibility, doubling, that aspect. Is your firm really ready to do that? So that's what I'd say first. Second is definitely culture. To really know the attorney, know their team, if you're going to look at acquiring that, to make sure it is going to be a good fit. And the third piece is it is a financial game. If you go into it without really running that, projected return on investment analysis or projected cash flow, and I'll give an example. We were basically engaged, referred over to an attorney, personal injury attorney. Fully is like, look, I want to buy a practice. I was approached by another just business broker who's helping this attorney, 2 towns over, sell their personal injury practice. And so we looked at that. The difference, though, on this one is our attorney, the buyer, co-counsels, all of their litigation, right? So their fee structure, their net looks a lot different than this other attorney who does all of their own litigation. And so what we really worked through with that buyer prospect is to say, look, this practice that you're taking over potentially and would be paying for looks different under your platform, right? Because you're going to bring in this case that's $100,000, potential fee to you. And if it's got to go to litigation, you split that 50-50. To him, it's $100,000. To you, it's going to be $50,000, right? And so it's really looking at, that mesh of, does it really work from a return on investment, from a financial model? We tell a lot of our sellers that we work with that a lot of times the offer depends on the buyer model, right? The buyer structure and everything else, because our models for selling, buying are all over the place, right? Depending on the practice and everything else. But overall, a lot does depend on that, because just in that situation, to that buyer that we were dealing with, that practice is less valuable because they choose to take a higher expense and co-counsel litigation cases. If you're a 5-year PI attorney, leaving another firm, and you want to go in and work all those cases, that practice has a higher value to you, right? Because you can go try all those cases and do that. You're going to make that money that seller was making. So a little bit of that. I would make sure, again, you're ready, your firm's ready, or anything else, because it's not easy to run law firms, right? And if you're going to double your growth and double, hopefully your management and everything that comes with it, just be ready. And then, second and third, culture, and then make sure you really run that financial to make sure it's a good fit for you. So that's a lot of what we do to make sure buyer and seller deals work. We run deals that are going to work for both, not that they're going to be like, hey, here's the number, and we've never tested it. Like, lawyers don't always like numbers. The CPA side of me likes numbers, but I do think it's really important to digest that, show that framework, test any purchase terms, any models, so that everybody feels comfortable like, hey, yeah, this is going to work for both going forward. It's going to be a success.
I've got a similar question to what Jim asked you. It's kind of the opposite of that. And what are some red flags that you should be looking out for whenever you're looking to acquire a business? Because, maybe the financials look good and everything, but what are some of those landmines that you might be looking out for?
Yeah, I would say, number one is, look to the valuation. The biggest mistake we see in outside valuations. Of course, we believe our valuations are the best, but that's almost 10 years of doing this as transactions. Our valuations are for market approaches, right? So we are valuing goodwill, but what we see a lot in outside valuations is they forget that a lot of attorneys produce a lot of the revenues, right? They do a lot of the legal work in the firms, and that has to be counted. That's a negative hit in a lot of firms to their overall value. And so look to that valuation. Don't just take it for, again, what the statement is or anything else. We're still in a pretty conservative valuation, metric for law firms. On an earnings multiple, like an adjusted earnings multiple, we're somewhere between 2 and 3.5. Our bigger firms break that number and kind of go beyond, but most firms are somewhere in there. So if you see an earnings and somebody's asking you for 5 times, earnings, like red flag. Right? Look at that and see why it is and really run that return on investment. The other is, as I kind of mentioned already, if they don't know where their clients come from, stop. Really only do that deal probably if it is some kind of, merger, joinder of counsel relationship where you're going to pay on a percentage over time or otherwise. And then, I really think the third is, red flags are thinking internally as well. Even though a lot of attorneys, some play up how hard they work, some play down how hard they work, but it's really, could you step into their shoes, right? Could you step into this attorney, this seller's shoes and do what they do? Or do you have somebody on your team or people on your team that you can divvy that up for? Because that's the overall piece. The fourth one that I would say is, I call it, would you like to take them to lunch? These are transition-based sales. So overall, if you're looking at something that this person is going to have to help, introduce referral sources, transition clients, right? Anything of that nature, do you like them enough to take them to lunch on a weekly basis? Could you work with the seller on that? And it seems like a simple question, but overall, you're going to be working with them and you want to make sure you have a communication ease with them to basically, work through those different questions, work through that and make sure it happens. If you look at somebody and you say, I don't know if I really like them, and it is a transition-based exchange, don't do it, right? Because the communication will break down quickly. That transition plan with most practices is the key to success. And if you can't implement that, right, because there's a communication breakdown or just a culture breakdown or otherwise, don't do the deal.
I would love to know what it's like to work with you and your team. Do you consult even before someone's thinking about acquiring a practice? Do you help them go out and find the practices? What does it look like in that realm? Yeah,
absolutely. So we help, again, sellers looking for their continuation, their exit strategies. We consult with, everybody. You can, go to our website, schedule a call. We'll do a discovery call, see if we can help you now or in the future or whatever your direction is. But from the seller side, we really look at it as you can add your listing to our website if you want to kind of go, the list it yourself process, or we can help you on a full brokerage service platform. So we offer kind of both of those opportunities to that. We believe in our process, our team, everything else. But for some practices, they want to test the market. And so we offer that as well. We have our buyer database. We, of course, are trying to drive this as really the marketplace. So to the buyer side also, again, great place to come, look through. We can present any opportunities that we currently have in market or that we would have. We also have certain buyers that have engaged us to really go on a search. And so we'll actively go and, search for practices for them to acquire. Those may be specific practice areas, geographic regions, otherwise, that we're really trying to play matchmaker, but just from the buyer side in those capacities. So our overall mission is really to make more of these deals come together. And so any way we can do that, from helping in the process, helping in the valuation knowledge, helping in the deal terms or structuring, we're happy to do so, whether you're a seller, a buyer, or just need some strategic planning on valuation, internal succession or otherwise.
It's great because we have a lot of guests that we interview on here, as you know, and like you can tell what the hell you're talking about, Tom. So this is great. So I'm hoping that if people are thinking about selling their firm or buying a firm, I hope that they hire you. If someone is looking to hire you, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can visit us at thelawpracticeexchange.com. That's thelawpracticeexchange.com. You can call us 919-789-1931. We're on all the socials, well, most of the socials, right? Can't keep up with all of them, but from that standpoint. But yeah, thelawpracticeexchange.com, go there. We have some good resources, for you to go through. We're happy to have a discovery call with you, see if we can help you. Times that, that aspect of when the time is right for everybody. So, overall, just look at that, but feel free to learn and know more. So when the time's right, you can move forward.
I love it. All right. We do want to be respectful of your time, so we're going to wrap things up. Before I do, I want to remind everyone to join us in the big Facebook group if you're interested in that, discussing marketing ideas, business ideas, whatever it may be with other attorneys. Just search Maximum Lawyer in Facebook and you'll find us. If you're interested in a more high-level conversation, join us in the Guild. Go to maxlawguild.com and you'll find out more information about that. And while you're listening to the rest of this episode, if you don't mind leaving us a 5-star review, we would greatly appreciate it. Jimmy, what is your hack of the week?
My hack is find what motivates you. So my wife and my son love to tease me. They say that I keep buying the same book all over and over and over, that They're all like UOU or the 12-week year or Zone to Win. They say, Dad, you just get the same book over and over. But these books get me fired up. They get me motivated. When I'm on the treadmill, I'm reading, I'm trying to listen to stuff that's going to get me motivated. And you got to fill your brain with positive and idea generating material. Now, there is definitely a time for quiet and for reflection. I'm down with that. But I find it really helpful to be listening or reading a couple books at a time. Different ideas will come to me. And even though my wife and son think it's pretty funny that most of my books have similar titles, they're not all the same. I'm getting good ideas left and right. So I encourage everyone to do the same.
I think most of the books are the same. It's just the repetition. You're just, it's over and over and over again. It's finally sinking in. So, but there's nothing wrong with that. That's good. All right, Tom, we always ask our guests to give a tip or a hack of the week. What you got for us?
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably been mentioned on the podcast before or otherwise, but my tip on that book front would be go read Built to Sell, right? If you haven't read it before by John Warlow, it's a great, easy read. It's also a concept that maybe this is a combined hack or tip of the week. Focus on the business, right? Focus on growth, on marketing the business, not you personally, and delegate and elevate. Another good book there from the traction aspect, but to do that. But Built to Sell, John Warlow.
It's a phenomenal book. I think Jim recommended that to me a decade ago. Such a good book. So really good stuff.
Absolutely.
Another book for everybody. Just get your bookshelves ready. And this one is on measuring what matters. It is by John Doerr. And it's, how about this for a subheading? How Google, Bono, and the Gates Foundation rocked the world with OKRs. So if you want to know how to track things, we hear all the time like, hey, what should I track? What shouldn't I track? Yada, yada, yada. Read this book. It'll give you that basic overview that you need on what you should track and what you shouldn't track. And if you want to sell your firm, maybe you could take these numbers and then hand them off to Tom and he can help you sell your firm. But Tom, thank you so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. I really enjoyed this podcast. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Tom. See you, bud.
Thanks for listening to the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. To stay in contact with your host and to access more content, go to MaximumLawyer.com. Have a great week and catch you next time.